To do a live stream of me actually recording a CBTNuggets video. Now, I haven't started the recording yet. I'm still getting set up. So I thought I would do this just to get my blood flowing, doing the live stream again, and show a lot of people. A lot of people have wondered, what do I do behind the scenes to actually do one of these videos, and actually get a video recorded at the same time. And if anybody's interested in BGP, that's going to be what I'm talking about. So. That said, let's get started. So what I've got right now, just so you can see what I do, I set up my camera. Behind the camera, I actually have a full-size, it's about a 65-inch television where I can see myself. So when I'm looking at myself right here, I'm actually staring right at the camera, which lines it up, makes it feel pretty good. I over here have my slide. I have a pen where I can write on the screen. On this monitor, I actually have it in here. I'll share it with you. I can close this down. And by the way, I try and close just about everything that I'm working on, except what I'm actually recording, because otherwise it pops up and ruins videos and things like that. So right here, I already have a lab window opened up where I can do a demonstration and show everything that I'm doing as I'm configuring it. And this is our full emulated environment. I can flip a button and I can actually be in a little window while talking on the screen. This is a lot of the new formats that we've created at CBTNuggets. So you can see a lot of that. Looks like a few viewers are tuned in. So hi. Pretty soon I'm going to hit the record button. So I was just testing. I can actually record at the same time as streaming. Kick my shoes off and do this. So the fun part is normally this is where I'm like, okay, everybody quiet. I actually record a lot at my home. I also record in an office where people that have been with CBT for a while have seen both environments. Looks like a couple people are in. It's good to see you. How have I been? I've been great. I'm about to actually, and if you haven't heard what I'm doing, I'm going to record a BGP video for the new CCNP ENCOR, and I thought I'd just stream it live, show the whole process. So as soon as I start recording that, I'm going to I'm going to stop talking to the chat, because obviously, or maybe I could integrate that into the video. One of the things that you probably know about me is my videos are a little bit more on the fly, spontaneous, which sometimes is great, sometimes comes back to haunt me. So good. So I'm going to start my recording of this. This will become, what you're about to see will become one video at CBTNuggets of probably about 130 that will be inside of my material of the CCNP ENCOR series. This is BGP networks, how to advertise BGP networks. So here we go. I'm going to hit the record button right now. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I often will just stare at the screen and just get my mind in the right place. This is, by the way, I will have to edit this video at the very end and cut out all of this because the official video on CBTNuggets doesn't have any of this. But so you're seeing Jeremy when he records live, or we'll say not live, but real training videos that are on the site. This is the process that I go through. I kind of get an idea in my head, I close my eyes and just kind of think about it, and then I just go. So here we go. And by the way, you won't hear any of the soundtracks that are all added later, the music and all the other fun stuff. Okay, I'm done talking to the random folks behind the scene. And maybe on the video that'll be on the CBT website, I'm going to let everybody know that I'm going to be live streaming this at the same time so that I can be a little more, we'll say, interactive. Okay, here we go. Sometimes with BGP, you just want to scream, "Speak to me." By the time we're done here, we will advertise prefixes into the BGP process using the network command. So in the last video, what we did is we set up our BGP sessions to where our neighbors are communicating with each other, but they're not actually telling anything. Now, I want to clarify one thing that we mentioned in the last video. I said BGP will not advertise anything that you don't tell it. Well, take a look. Let me jump back here, and I'm going to take you straight over to the lab environment. This is going to be the lab that we're working on in this video. And one of the things that I want to make sure that you understand is BGP will advertise things that it's received from other routers. What I meant when I said that BGP will not advertise things that you don't tell it is it won't originate any advertisement. So check this out. We've got two uplink carriers actually expanded from the last video where we had just BigNet before. Now we have MidNet and BigNet. Both of them are emulated ISPs where they have all of the internet routing table that's being received by them. And this is what I want to emphasize, they, with no prompting from you, will continue to propagate that internet routing table to you. So all the internet routes will come in from BigNet down here to FishNet, and from MidNet to FishNet. And Fish1, this Fish router right here, will then have to determine what's the best routes that it's going to use from that. Now, what I mean when I get to the network world, and this is all preface to this learning lab, is that the FishNet will not originate any networks. It's not going to tell anybody about this 10.5.9 network, and we wouldn't want it to. It's even not going to tell anybody about these routes down here, the 203.0.113, and we may not want it to. That's what we're going to do in this nugget, is we're going to go through this lab and actually walk through the process of originating routes into BGP. Now, what I want to do is first off emphasize that if you've already gone through this, stop now, open the lab, and do it yourself, because that's going to be where the learning process really takes hold and a lot of it sinks in. You have access to the lab environment, so do it. Pause right now and give it a try. If you get stuck, continue on. Now, if this is your first time going through, I'm going to go through and add a lot of my explanations as I do each one of these and walk through these labs. Again, the reason I approach the material this way is because you learn so much more when you're in an environment where you just have to do it rather than go, okay, well, here's the concepts, here's kind of the commands, and someday you'll actually use this, right? So that's why I've built the lab around this. So that being said, I'm going to start walking through. I'm going to assume that you've paused and you've worked through the lab yourself, and you're either, this is your first time, or you're going through to fill in some of the cracks, right? So here we go. I've got the lab environment. I'm going to slide in right here. You can see that I have access to Fish1, C1, C2, Big1, Mid1. So let's look at the actual lab objectives. First off, here's what we're after. After establishing the neighbor sessions, which was the last lab, BigNet has agreed to transition from using static routing to the BGP-based advertisement. Stop right there. One of the things that I want to make sure that you understand is when you're in the uplink world, when you are running a data center like we've established in this environment, you will need to communicate with your carriers to run BGP. By default, carriers, whether they're a data center, whether they're an ISP, will actually assign you a subnet, and they will just set a static route on their router that communicates with you. Let me demonstrate. If I come back here, you can see the big one router, BigNet. We would assume that we got this subnet, 203.0.113.0, from them. We went to BigNet and we said, hey, we need that. Why? Well, because a long time ago, we ran out of IPv4 networks. There's no more to be assigned by the government entities that have them, right? So we have to get them from other carriers. So we would go to BigNet and we'd be like, hey, guys, I need a Class C network. They would make us justify it because you have to say, well, here's why I'm going to use that. And then they would make us pay a lot of money because they are paying for those addresses most likely, right? So they will then assign it to us. We'll then ask them, and I'm getting a little into the real world side. This is the politics that you won't see in a certification exam. We'll ask them, hey, are you okay if we advertise that, out other carriers? And it behooves them to say yes, because if they say no, then you're going to go to the other carriers instead of them and be like, well, hey, we'll get our addresses from you, right? So they'll be like, oh yeah, sure, that's totally fine. They'll make the updates in all the government entities to saying they're temporarily allocating those to you, even though they still own them, right? You then will go and start an agreement with MidNet and advertise that same network, 203.0.113.0, out them, right? And that makes it available. So if your connection to BigNet goes down, No problem. I mean, problem, yeah. Your internet connection went down, but everybody can still get in and access it through Midnet. And that's one of the powers of BGP. That's one of the main reasons that we run BGP, right? But before you do that, before you do all that communication and all the politics, BigNet would have simply a static route. They would say static, 203.0.113.0 is accessible from 198.51.114, which maybe is your link up to them, right? And then they would redistribute that static route. That's actually going to be the topic of the next video, into their carrier, right? And that then trickles out to the rest of the internet. So the way you do this in the real world is they'll have that static route. You say, hey, we want to run BGP. You'll set up the session exactly like we did in the previous video. Then you'll talk to them and say, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to advertise this network back to you. And that's what we're going to do in this process. I'm going to advertise this network, 203.113, via BGP so that it shows up in your BGP table. Then they'll remove the static route, and then there's no more static, right? BGP is now doing that. And I want to make sure, I want to make sure you understand why they do that. They do that because now BGP is the keep alive. If the BGP session fails between fish one and big one, let me get back to my window here. If it fails between fish one and big one, then that means the connection has gone down, and big one, because they've removed the static route, will now find other routes like going through Midnet to be able to access your network, right? If they don't remove that static route, then you're stuck. They're not going to be able to they're not going to be able to reach that network, right? Good. Okay, so now you understand the premise. I know there's a lot of preface, but now let's dive into the lab itself. So first step, it says, first step is to reestablish the internal and external BGP neighbor sessions as you did before. This time, add the Midnet peer. Now, I'm having you do this, so this will really emphasize the muscle memory and get those commands of setting up the neighbor sessions down. What I'm going to do as I work through this with you is I'm going to put that to music and go through it really fast because you've already seen that. And if you need that, go back to the previous video where I showed you how to set up all those neighbor sessions. Okay. So live streamers, anybody that's tuned in on Twitch and hearing me right now, this is now where the power of editing comes in. So what I'm going to do is actually set up a lot of the sessions, the BGP sessions between all of these routers. And then in the post-edit process, I'll put this on like 10 times speed, put some music to it so people just see it fly by, because this is stuff that people have done previously. So now, by the way, this is kind of fun. I can actually, I think there's like one person viewing, but that's fine because I know it's the middle of the day. I can't even see how many people are viewing. But now I can say hi to everybody out there. Thanks, doing a great job for the community. Thank you, Mac Prometheus. I'm going to give up on the names. This is how the sausage is made. Yes, just got your CCNA today. Congratulations. That is fantastic. Good luck. Okay, it's 18. It's 18. It's 18. Okay. All right. Make that 2. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to go on here and configure. Actually, I'll take my little window off. I'm going to configure BGP, set up the sessions between mid one, fish one, big one. Now, obviously, as I mentioned before, this will all be post-edit material, and it'll be hyperspeed with music. So I can hang out and talk to you all day. I'm going to remove my little picture because that looks kind of funny on a hyperspeed video. So, all right, let's set up BGP. So first thing I'm going to do on the fish one router. Now, in this lab, we quote unquote should only have access to the fish one router. So we'll get that going. We'll go into global config mode, router BGP 64777. And I will do router, actually it's BGP router ID 1.1.1.1, just the name of the router to BGP. I'll then go through and establish my neighbors. I'll do neighbor, because BGP has manual neighbors, 198.51.100.9, remote AS, and that will be 65450, which is the remote autonomous system of mid1. And if that ISP is set up for you, they should already have a static configuration on their side. So I'll hit the up arrow, do the same command for BigNet. Oh, and I see that neighbor come up right there. BigNet at 13, and they are remote AS 65, and I can't see it, so move this right here. 65,500. 65,500. Enter. Good. So those neighbors should come up. Now I need to establish the internal. So those are eBGP neighbors, and now I need to establish the internal neighbors. Hit the up arrow and do neighbor. Actually, the remote AS will be the same, 64,777. And the internal neighbor, neighbor 1, will be customer 1, 10.5.9.2. Enter. And neighbor 2 will be customer 2, 10.5.9.3. Now we, as the carrier, have the responsibility of configuring their routers as well. So we'll go into global config. Customer 1 will do router BGP 64777. I will do BGP router ID. This, by the way, is the requirements from the previous lab. Oops. .2, and we will do neighbor 10.5.9.1 remote AS, and we'll do 64,777. Since it's the same autonomous system, this will be make that 18. Okay, so now I get it. Somebody was saying 18 viewers. So I literally can't see how many viewers are there. So great, good. By the way, it's so good to it feels warm and fuzzy to have people. Normally, I'm just by myself doing this. You know, it's kind of a little more lively. Okay, so I'm not forming neighbors between the customers. Okay, so good on that. So I'm going to do a show IP BGP here and see the BGP table. And there's something I forgot to do. I can see all of these networks, but iBGP does not change the next hop. So I'm going to go back to the Fish1 router, hit the up arrow, and we will do, it's actually kind of a hack, next hop self on both of these neighbors so that it will update those. Then I'll come back here and do actually a clear IP BGP star, reset those sessions. No, clear, what am I missing? Clear BGP. Oh, wait a sec. That's right. In the lab environment, the clear command is restricted. Clear. I'll have to figure that out later. So customer 1, hit the up arrow. Yeah, it still has the wrong NS hop. That's all right. We'll come back to it. Customer 2. All right. Global config mode. We'll do router BGP 64777, and I will do router ID 1.1.1.3. But it's BGP router ID, and I will do neighbor 10.5.9.1 remote AS and 64777. Hit the enter key. Good, neighbor is up. Do a show IP BGP. Takes a little while for these to be received. Okay, cool. And notice the next hop is updated on this one because I issued that command next hop self, and it's a brand new session. So those will all end up in the routing table, show IP route. Good. And we are good there. So customer 1 probably still, oh, there we go. It updated. So we've got all of those being received. Fish1, I'll do a show IP BGP. It should be receiving those routes. Yep. So it's got both of those. Good. Okay. So now, and by the way, now I'm going to go back to my my recording mode. Now I'm going to come back here, walk through the lab, and then get everybody back up to speed. So this in the final edit will all be cut out, and you'll get to see me do something like this. All right, good. Step 1 is done, and we've actually taken all of those networks received by Fish1. Take a look at what's different, though, from the last one. In the last video, we only had one uplink carrier, right? BigNet. So all of the routes were received by just one carrier. Now that we have two, hang on, look at this. I really want you to catch what's happening here. All of these routes are being received by two sources. And look at this output. This is huge when you get to the BGP table. The one network, 1000, is being received by this guy. This is one source of that route. And this guy, this is the second source of the route. Now, your router has to make a choice. Which one's he going to choose? And in this case, he's going to choose the one that has the shortest autonomous system path. You can see this one route was received by just autonomous system 65500, and then it's internal after that. So it originated from that system, right? And it's like, okay, the BGP algorithm, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, said, well, that one's better than the one right here because I had to go through 2 autonomous systems to reach that one. So yes, I know about that. Yes, I could use that maybe, but the one that's going to go in the routing table. So check this out. Remember the one network, right? I'm going to do a show IP route. And you can see right here, the one network, the one that finally made it in is the one that goes to the .13 as the next hop. And we can validate that right here in this. Now, if I look down a little bit more, it looks like, let me hit the up arrow, do, not show IP route, show IP BGP. I can see that as we cycle down, it looks like the second one had the better AS path. See, there's only one system. So it looks like one carrier is originating some of these routes, and those are chosen as the best for some, the higher numbered networks. And the other carriers originating other routes, and those are being chosen as the best. So do you see how this works? Do you see how BGP's choosing those networks? And again, as we look at the 2 customer routers, if I click up here and look at customer 1 and customer 2, we entered the command when forming those neighbor relationships, next hop self, right? So those are there. And notice all of these are only being received by one source. And who is that? Again, coming back here to the diagram, it's that fish router right there in the picture. Good. So at this point, we have reestablished the internal external BGP neighbor sessions, added the midnet peer, and did a little discussion on what that meant to us, right? So now it says use the BGP network command. Actually, we're not done with that yet. BGP network command to ensure the full 203.0.113.0 network is announced to midnet, BigNet, and thus the rest of the internet. So let's talk about that for a second. This is saying, okay, Fish 1, it's time for you to originate some networks. Now, there's a couple ways that we can do this. And when you're doing this lab, if you're coming through and getting this point and you haven't heard this yet, I would say either one of these are correct. You would not be marked down simply because we didn't say just that network. I said, ensure the full network is announced, right? We could announce that as the 2 parts, like you can see right here on the diagram, or we could announce it as one. And in this, I'm going to do it as both. So first and foremost, I want to show you something. I want to kind of go to a little whiteboard real quick. Well, not that way. This way, and that way. There we go. So I want to show you, how does the BGP network command work? And let me grab my pen real quick. Network. The BGP network command identifies simply what routes in the routing table should be promoted to the BGP table. So right here, that's our routing table, right? And when we do a show IP route, hang on, let me get my little head right here. When we do a show IP route, we can see everything that the router knows about. But BGP does not take all of that stuff and just advertise it to others. BGP is an exterior gateway protocol, an EGP, right? So it doesn't just take all the internal networks and be like, hey, world, here's, that would be a big problem. We, as the administrator, have to step in right here and identify. That's our job. We identify which ones of those routes, which routes we would like to have BGP put into the BGP table and thus go to the rest of the world. Now, there's a couple ways to do that. One is the network command. That's what we're going to be talking about right here. The other is the redistribute command, and that'll be the subject of the next video. So using the network command, and let me make sure you understand how this works. I go into the BGP routing process and I type in network followed by exactly the network that I want to advertise to the rest of the world. And what I mean by that is exactly. The requirement is this has to match the route in the routing table. This is. I want to pause right there. Let that soak in for a second. It has to match exactly what's in the routing table. This is not like OSPF or EIGRP or RIP or any other interior protocol where the network command in that world does 2 things. One, it sends hello messages, right? And we know that's different right now because BGP doesn't have hello messages. It doesn't form neighbors that way. I have to go in and type in exactly what neighbors it will have. They're static. So that's gone. The second thing that it does is kind of what BGP does, identify what networks to advertise. right? And so, but here's the big difference. If I go in OSPF and type in network, we'll just say 10.0.0.0 and hit the enter key. Now, and so it needs a wildcard mask, right? Or ERGP or something. What's it do? It looks at all the interfaces and tries to find interfaces starting with 10. And it goes, okay, I'm going to advertise those networks. BGP does not do that. BGP will look at the routing table and say, do you have the 10 network? Literally, exactly 10.0.0.0/8, right? And if you do, then it will promote that to the BGP table and advertise it to the rest of the internet. If you don't, I mean, if let's say you've got a derivative of it, you've got 10.1.1.0. Now, first off, you would never advertise the 10 network to the internet, right? You guys all know that. That's a private address. But let's just say if you did /24 in your routing table, BGP would see this command. It would be like, no dice, no match. It is not the 10.1.1 network, or it's not the 10.0.0, what you typed in. So I'm not going to promote that to the BGP table. Game over, right? Okay. So that being said, let me cycle back here now to the diagram, and let's look at what we're doing. We're going to use the BGP, and I'm going to do it both ways. First off, let's do it. Oh, let me change my pen color real quick. We're going to do that from the customer routers. We're going to say, hey, I'm going to advertise these to the fish router, and then the fish router will pass those on. Now, and again, I said that would be right. You can do that. That doesn't violate what I said. But someone might interpret this and say, I just want to advertise that network. And there's a way we can, there's actually many ways we can do that too, right? So let's head over to the customer routers. Pen, and here we go. Customer routers. Here's the network command, right? So right now I'm going to do a show IP BGP, and you can see the only thing in the BGP table is the stuff that we're getting from the internet, right? The ISPs. Okay. So I'm going to go do a show IP interface brief. Customer one router, I can see it's connected to this network right there, just like we saw in the diagram right here. That's the hosted servers at the data center or whatever it's trying to access, right? Good. Okay, so let's do a quick show run interface GI1/0. So show run. Oh, I have no show run command in this output. So right, you would see. Let's do a show IP interface. G1/0. We restrict the show run in the emulator because it's just like that on the exam. And you can see it's a /25 subnet mask. So 255.255.255.128 is the subnet mask there. Okay, good. So now I'm going to go into router BGP 64777. Again, that's my autonomous system. I can see I'm in the fishnet right now. So once I'm in there, now I'm gonna show you the wrong way to do it, right? If you're used to doing it in the OSPF and interior gateway world, you would look at that and you'd go, okay, so network 203.0. What was it? 203.113.0. Right? And that would be wrong. So when I hit the enter key, it's going, so BGP is looking at the routing table, and let's do a show IP route, right? It's looking at the routing table, and it's like, okay, what's up with this? You've got a subnet. You can see it's subnetted. You've got a subnet of this, which is a /25, but I don't see this in the routing table. So when I go back and do a show IP BGP, you will see that network, the 203.0.113.0, is not promoted to the BGP table. Failure, right? Didn't work. So I'm going to go in now. We'll hit the up arrow and do a router BGP, and I'm going to do a no network 203.0.113, right? And now I'm going to hit the up arrow, and I'll do network, same network, but I'm going to say, okay, what you're looking for in the routing table is the mask 255.255. Oops, 255.128. Enter. Huh? Now you've identified exactly the subnet you're trying to match. Now, let's go back here, and I'll do a show IP BGP. Bada bing. We have promoted our first network to the routing table. Look at that. Now it's like, oh, I see that in the did I say routing table? I meant BGP table. Well, I see that in the routing table. A match. I'm identifying it. I'm promoting it. I'm now originating it from the customer one router. And check this out. I'm going to go to fish one, the fishnet router. I'll hit the show IP BGP, and now I can see The fish router is showing that as well. It received it via iBGP, internal BGP, and if we were to go up to the carrier and do a show IP BGP, I would see that network being originated, right, from my router. And by the way, it also came from or which one's which? Hang on. Oh, yeah. It originated from my router. You can see that's the best route right there, the .14. It also was received by the other carrier because it went out to Midnet as well, right? Fish 1 took what was advertised to it by the customer router and sent it on. Make sense? Okay, cool. Second one, let's get the second customer router. We can do that one a little faster. Global config mode, router BGP 64777. Hit the enter key and we'll do network. Now, hang on, I forgot to check the interface on this one. We'll do a show IP interface brief. This guy's got 203.0.113.129, which makes it a part of this network right here, 203.0.113.128/25. And again, I can verify that using do show IP interface GI1/0, and I can see it is I'm glad I checked. I did that completely wrong. That's going to be a problem. So by the time you get to this lab, that'll be fixed, but I need to fix that. So I'm going to go into global config mode. Let's exit out. I typed in the wrong subnet mask. So I will do a interface GI1/0. IP address 203.0.113.129.255.255.255.128. I must have typed some of the other subnets was a .248. So got that wrong. There we go. Now I'll get back into router BGP 64777. Do a hit the up arrow and do that. Show IP interface GI1/0. There we go. Now it's got the right subnet mask, and that would have manifested itself when I tried to add it to BGP. It'd be like, I don't have a match for that. So now I can type in network 203.0.113. It's not 129. It's 128. Or actually no dot. 255.255.255.128. That's the subnet mask, right? Hit the enter key. Oh, forgot the mask. Literally the word mask. There we go. Hit the enter key, and now I'll do a show IP BGP. And I can see that this guy is added to the BGP table on the customer router. I can also go up to the fish network and do a show. Let's see, show IP BGP on the fish router, and I should see both networks. Yep, there's one and there's the other coming from the two customer routers to my router, and those then again propagate out to the internet. So that is one way of using the network command, ensuring that network is announced to midnet, bignet, et cetera, right? Now let me show you the other way. And I wouldn't expect that you would do this unless you've got some previous BGP experience. Watch this. I could have gone to the fish router, global config mode, and set up a static route. Watch this. I'll do IP route 203.0.113.0 with a mask of 255.255.255.0, right? I'm just putting a static route in the table. So what's the destination for that? I mean, again, look at this diagram right here. That we've got one network I'm typing in. I'm typing in a static route, but notice it's split into two subnets. So hang on. What's the destination of that static route? What am I doing here? I'm going to put null 0. I pretty much said anything that comes to that network goes to the bit bucket, gets dropped, right? Now, what? Why am I doing that? Well, watch this. I'm going to do a show IP route, and what I see here is I can see that I've got 3 networks, the 2 that came from the customer routers, right? And you can see those being learned via BGP, and look at the one right above it. This is the bogus route that I put in that goes nowhere. It's a dead route. Now, first off, will the router ever use this route right here? No, it won't. Why not? Well, because the number one rule of routing is called the rule of specificity. The more specific a route is, the better it is. So when a packet comes in, it's like, hey, I'm going to this network or I'm going to this network. Those will always win because it has a more specific subnet mask, a /25 versus a /24. So this route will never be used, okay? So then why is it there? Watch this. Global config mode, router BGP 64777. Then I can type in network 203.0.113.0. Enter. Why? Because that allows me to advertise it to the carriers. All I did was add a bogus static route to the routing table so that I now have something, just like the diagram where I drew everything up. The whole goal of the network command is to promote routes from the routing table to the BGP. But it doesn't matter if they're valid, if they go nowhere. We're just putting a route in the table that I can now advertise to the carriers. So let's go back here. I'll do a show IP BGP, and you can see right there, it's in the routing table. It doesn't know it's a static route that points to nowhere. It just looks at the routing table and sees it's right there. It says, okay, that's valid. So now I could go to big one and mid one, and I could look and I could see in their BGP routing table, I see now that full Class C network. It doesn't put the mask after it because it recognizes that's the normal classful network, a Class C network, right? So it's seeing it right there. So if I was going to do it that way, if I was following the lab instructions, hang on, let me get back to those. If I was to do it that way, I would not use the routes advertised by the customers. Either A, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't have the customers advertise the routes, and I would set up static routes to them to reach their individual networks, right? And then I would just advertise just the Class C network using that command that I just did, right? That's the beauty. Okay, good. We have now, at this point, reestablished the internal and external BGP sessions. We've got those going. We've used the BGP network command, which is the whole crux of this video. That's what I wanted to show you and really make sure that you understood what that network command does. Now, what we can do, the last couple, is use the proper show command to validate the fish1 router is sending the correct advertised networks to its peers. And after properly configuring your advertisement, access the big one router and verify that route exists. Now, I can say we kind of jumped ahead and already did that just because I was so excited to be like, look, there it is, right? So what is this? There is a command in BGP where you can see what routes are being advertised from your router out. Really useful, especially when you start getting into filters. And I'm going to show that to you right now. All right. This is where it gets fun. A lot of people. So now I'm by the way, I'm talking to you guys live streaming on Twitch right now. What you've just seen, by the way, when people are like, "Wow," it's like you just go, and that is literally how I record the videos on BGP on CBTNuggets, and that's literally going to become content now on CBTNuggets. But people are like, "How do you know all this stuff off the top of your head?" I don't. And this is where I can talk to you guys right now and hopefully make you feel like he's human. I'm human. I can do this. I can learn this stuff too. Like when I got to that, I wrote, by the way, I wrote this lab, and let me move my head off. When I got to this, I don't remember right now what command that is. Now I could fumble around with the question mark, but nobody wants to see that on a CBTNuggets video, right? So what I do at this point, I'm like, so I'll probably fumble behind the scenes and then come back and be like, oh, here's the command and type it in. And so everybody's like, wow, he just knows all this stuff. It's amazing. No. When you do this, as long as I have, it's first in, first out, baby. It's like, I remember, I would remember that if I was teaching BGP for days and days and days in a row, but now it's all there. So good. And I see a bunch of people jumping into the chat as well. By the way, I can't even look at the chat while I'm talking, or else I'll just go, and end up being a moron on the video. So now this is where, and hey, why not? We're all friends here. This is where I'll literally bring this up and I'll tinker around. I'm like, okay, what was it? It was show IP BGP. I think it's for a specific neighbor. Yep. For a neighbor, neighbor. And all I'm looking for is the syntax when I do this. 111. Oh, that's funny. You can't even see what I'm doing. I'm just sitting here on just using the question mark, and there it is. That's the command. Advertise routes. That's the one I was looking for. So I'm doing that off screen, if you will, and then and this is the hardest part is I'm like, okay, what was the last thing I said? Because in the editing phase, I take out all of this stuff that you and I are talking right now. I take out all of this stuff, Yeah, I saw somebody just say, Jeremy, genius immersion lost. It's true. Nobody remembers the millions of possible commands. So again, that's why I wanted you guys to see this. So, okay. So where was I? So that's the hardest part, is to think, okay, how was I talking? What was I saying right before I said this? So I think the last thing I said is I was on command number 3. I said, okay, so let's go use the proper show command to validate the fish one. I can't even see it. The fish one router is sending correct advertised network to its peers. Okay, so now what I'll do is pop back up, come back here to the fish one router, and here we go. So now Jeremy goes back into CBTNuggets recording mode, right? So watch this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is bring up the fish one router, and watch this. I'll use the show command, show IP BGP, hit the question mark, and I can see that I have a ton of options. And you'll see in BGP, just about every option that you're going to type either relates to the route, where you can say filter on a certain route that I want to see, or it relates to a neighbor, right? And in this case, I'm going to say show IP BGP neighbor, and I'm going to zone in on a specific neighbor. Now, I don't remember off the top of my head, so I'll type in that show IP BGP summary that we saw in the last video. And I can see, oh, there's all my neighbors. So I'll do that show IP BGP neighbor. And I want to say, well, show me, let's look at one of the carriers, 198 dot, if I could type it, 198.51.100.9. And then I'll hit the question mark, and bingo, look at that. Advertised routes. Highlight that, right click it, paste it in there, and hit the enter key. What this does is show me, again, Jeremy, looking at the fish routers from the fish router's perspective. What routes am I sending to that neighbor, that BGP neighbor? And sure enough, I see the list right here. Bada bing, right? I can hit the up arrow and show, well, what about the other neighbor? I think there was a dot 13, right? Oh, if I can type it in with a dot 13, hit the enter key, bada bing, that neighbor. That command will be so insanely useful to you when you actually get to multiple carriers, because you're gonna see when we get to the advanced BGP applying all kinds of filters, and you're like, okay, what's real? What am I actually sending to the neighbor? That command is your lifeblood. It's your oxygen to be like, that's what I see, without calling up the carrier and be like, are you getting this route from me? Right? You can do that, but expect to be on hold for a good amount of time. So that is it. We have gone through. Use the network command to advertise the networks that we had from the fishnet to BigNet and MidNet, and gone in and verified it. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing. And that's a wrap. That's it. So now what I will do, and this is where I hit, I'm like, I sure hope I had the record button. I hit the stop recording button. There we go. It stopped. And then I take that, I put in an editor, and I go through, and truth be told, there's very little editing, because a lot of my recording is just very real. Like, okay, this is happening. If I make a mistake, I'm like, oh, I made a mistake. Let's learn from it and figure it out. Like, if I go too far down the road where it's like, I'm too far gone, then I'm just like, scrap it. I ditch the whole video and I start all over again, because I like, there's multiple ways of teaching, and this, if you ever teach online, there's 2 strategies. One is what I do, where you just kind of go real, go clean, go like, okay, this is really, it's almost like a classroom environment. Like, okay, let me show you how to do this. And the other way is to where you say short little clips. You're like, okay, so what I'm going to do is and then in the beauty, so neither one is wrong. One of them takes a lot more work after, where you edit all the little clips of what you're saying together. The beauty of editing that way is it's so short. Like, you can get a really concise video because you say exactly what you want to say. For me, doing that is like shoving ice picks under my fingernails, because I can't be me, and it just feels very unnatural, right? So I like my videos just tend to be long, and I'm like, man, sorry. That's just what you get. So that being said, that is how I record a CBTNuggets video and do a live stream simultaneously. So last thing I'm going to do before I sign off, because I'm going to go put that into an editor and chop it all up, is I'm going to just say a quick hello to all the people that have been chatting in there. HK John, good to see you again. He was at work. He probably has left already. He's scheduled his ICND CCNA exam, an all-in-one exam for this Friday. John, if you're still with us, good luck to you, buddy. How does, a BGP question, go figure. Question says, how does one carrier forward the route to another carrier without a network statement? A good question. And that, let me actually show that to you. That was something I mentioned earlier in the video, right here. So in this world, I just advertised, this whole network up here to the big one carrier. Now behind the scenes, you don't see it, but there's actually a BGP connection between these two routers, right? So anything that it receives via BGP, as long as there's no filters, it will send it just fine. But that was the whole point of this video that I created right here, is to show the BGP network command is actually how you originate networks, not forward networks, not just passing on what you've heard from others, because BGP routers do that by themselves. You don't have to do anything there. The network command just lets you originate networks. So hopefully that answered your question if you're still hanging around with us. Last few questions. Glad you checked the mask on the interface. Yeah, and I'm actually, that's a great reminder. I have to fix that lab because that lab is actually available to all the CBTNuggets students, and they're going to open it up and they're going to be like, what the, so I've got to fix that. Oh, you a big beer, Jeremy. You learned me in networking as a network engineer, and I got a job as a network engineer at Cisco. That is awesome, and that's a lot of why I do what I do. Bravo. Can't believe you're doing this now. Got me through ICND 1 and ICND 2. Good to see you. When will ENCOR be released? That's the number one question I get these days. So there's 5 instructors literally teaching the ENCOR. Me, Keith Barker, Chuck Keith, Knox Hutchinson, and Jeff, he's a double CCIE, amazing guy. So yeah. So there is no BGP on the new CCNA. You are absolutely correct. That was the last question in there that I saw. There is no BGP on CCNA. Now it's all CCNP. Good. So that said, I'm off to editing, and now you've seen how I create a video at CBTNuggets. See you guys.